Fab. So thank you very much today for coming to our session. Thank you to those who have just recently joined us. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about acing your Masters application and how to apply for a Masters at the University of Leicester. So my name is Alicia Mahindra. I am the UK PG Recruitment Officer. I'm originally from Coventry in the West Midlands. And I studied actually at the University of Leicester for both my undergraduate course in pharmaceutical chemistry and my PhD, which I've recently finished in chemistry as well. So I've lived in Leicester for 8 years now, and now I work for the university in our postgraduate recruitment role, which means I get to help and support students into their master's programs, and also share a bit of experience that I've had whilst I've been doing my studies too. So today we're going to cover a few different topics, things like finding the right course, the application process at Leicester specifically, some top tips for elevating your personal statement, some information, so what's next today and beyond. We might be able to touch a bit on why Leicester, and this is where my colleague Charlotte will come in, our lovely PG ambassador, to kind of answer some questions about her experiences at studying at Leicester as well. And then I'll share with you some contact details as well, so you can feel free to get in touch with me, but also the university as well, to help support your application and kind of help you through that process. But before we get started, just a small exercise for you. I think Charlotte is going to post the link in the chat, but if you could head to menti.com for me and type in the following code or scan the QR code on the screen. This is just to let us know how confident you're feeling at the moment about application processes, applying for your master's qualifications. So I'll leave this open for a couple of minutes. It's a very quick, just one-click question, but it'd be great just so we can get an idea as to where you're at the moment, and we'll look at this at the end, and hopefully we'll see an improvement for you. If you have got questions that you're thinking in the meantime, please, again, as I said earlier on, pop them in the chat. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know if you've put an application in or whereabouts you are in your process. And yeah, it'd be good to kind of chat and engage with you throughout this webinar. So I'll just give you a moment longer to fill in our Menti question, just to let us know how confident you're feeling about the application process. So if you head to menti.com and type in the following code, or if you scan the QR code or follow the links posted in the chat. Super. So I'm just going to touch upon finding the right course. So it's worth saying there's a huge amount of choice out there, which is why I've got this lovely photo of a box of chocolates on the side. There is a lot of different choices for your master's options, and there are more than 130 different universities in the UK with a range of courses leading to a variety of careers. And so some students, when they are applying for their master's, they're kind of taking those next steps into shaping the career that they'd like to go into. And sometimes for those careers, a master's is a really good step in that direction. But for some students, a master's study may also be about exploring your options, finding new subjects, finding about new topics, or something that you studied at undergraduate level that you wanted to explore more. Some of you may be returning to education after a period of time from your undergraduate degree as well. So it might be actually a new adventure or a new sort of topic or theme that you want to look into. And it's always worth me saying that you don't always have to have studied the same subject that you studied at undergraduate. I've put there, check your course entry requirements. In some cases, this may be necessary that you have studied something at an undergraduate level to progress onto the master's version of that. However, there are lots of huge different range of courses out there, and you are able to kind of explore new avenues and learn new content. Okay, so yeah, I'll just touch back on who I am. So you can see my name here and what I studied at university. But yeah, here's just a little bit of an overview of what we're going to cover. Here's the Menti code, which actually, yeah, I believe you won't have been able to access. So thank you if you have already accessed our Menti code through the links. But if not, here is the QR code on the screen. Please just head to menti.com and type in the following code. So it's 777-49147. Lovely. So yeah, this is just my original course, and I think my original slide, and actually I think I touched upon almost everything that is on here. So actually, yeah, just talking about kind of how the subject that you want to study for your master's degree doesn't always have to be the same subject you studied at undergraduate. It really could be a chance for new adventure, new exploration, and it can also lead to a range of different careers as well. It might help you expand in some existing knowledge. It might help you develop some new knowledge if you haven't previously had the chance to study that before. So there's a lot of choice, and actually sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. So we're hopefully going to break it down into few easy steps for you about how to apply, how to find a course, and how to start making some of those decisions depending on where you're at in your cycle. So hopefully there'll be a range of information in my presentation today that will cover that for everybody. I did see there were a few questions coming in. That's really, really great. We will come on to those towards the end of the session. I think Charlotte will also be able to support with some of those throughout. So yeah, please do post questions along the way if there are things that you'd like to know. So the first kind of step I would say is finding your course. So before you're applying, consider a few different things. So how does that course fit with your academic and professional interests? It may be a case that, as I mentioned previously, that you may be wanting to explore a new topic. It may be a case that you're looking to change profession or move into a new avenue. So again, that then corresponds with the entry requirements. Do you meet them? Can you meet them? Especially if you're a current undergraduate student, what kind of skill sets and what kind of requirements do those master's courses require? And actually, if you're in that phase at the moment where you're perhaps the first, second, or third year, what things can you do alongside your degree or during your current degree to meet those? If you're kind of coming back into education after a bit of a breakout, again, this is kind of other experiences that you might draw upon. So between your undergraduate degree and this point now, what experiences have you had, whether that be employment, whether that be other types of qualifications, and how does that kind of contribute to your application and what you're looking for in a course? I think the next point is really key. So that ask questions. Don't be afraid to speak to academic staff. On our pages at the University of Leicester, we've got details for course conveners and admissions teams, and I would really recommend kind of getting stuck in and asking those questions. If you've got really key avenues that you want to shape for your master's program, please make sure that the content is what you're looking for before you're applying, really. Generally, academic staff can be super helpful in really getting that specific content out to you. So they're really useful people to get in touch with, and don't worry kind of about asking silly questions. Effectively, you're kind of investing your time and your future, so you want to make sure that it's the right thing for you. And then again, I touched on this already. What kind of future career directions do you want to take? Again, having a look at the sort of career prospects that might kind of come from that. And we actually have a session being run next week by one of our careers team who can kind of talk about where a master's will take you with that. And I'll signpost you at the end of this session to our other upcoming webinars. So in terms of where to actually begin with your application, well, the first thing you'll do is to find your chosen course via our website. So I've given you an example here of one of our pages of one of our courses. So you'll be able to see a range of our PG courses when you head online. And then as you scroll down, you'll see this button in the middle for step 2 that says apply now. Head over to that one and it will take you out to our application system. So in step 3, you will input your email address, create a password, and begin your online application form. At this point, what I would say is that if you have any kind of application related queries, so whilst you're in this process of carrying out your application on our online system, if you have got queries, I would direct all of your emails to admissions@leicester.ac.uk. They will be kind of the best place to help you with that. So in terms of if you're unsure which qualifications you need to provide, or if perhaps you are struggling to provide additional references for your course, that would be a really, really good place to kind of get in touch. But you can see that along the image that I've got on there for step 3, there's a range of different things that you need to provide, the more standard things, personal details and contact details, your previous qualifications and experiences. You'll also need to provide some information about referees and funding. But another key thing on there that lots of students do ask us about are the personal statement criteria. So I'm going to touch upon that a little bit more because I think that's quite a key part of the application process. So at this point, you're looking at writing a personal statement, and we ask you to draft a brief 1,000 words maximum personal statement that firstly explains your research interest in this area. Secondly, describes any relevant research experience, for example, as part of your previous degree, maybe a dissertation that you've written or an extended project that you've done. And then list any academic work you might have published or is awaiting publication. This can also include things like attendance at conferences, presenting posters at conferences as well. And so, yeah, in this case, you can unpick this in a few different ways and tell us about how you're suited to the course. So really about your characteristics that make you a really good fit for this program, including things like your relevant experiences. Lots of students choose to draw upon the modules studied at undergraduate level. So if there's a particular topic from your undergraduate study that ties in really nicely with your master's course, I would definitely take a bit of time to unpick that and explore it. Talk about your key highlights, maybe grades that you achieved within that, and the content that really specifically appealed to you. If it's not something that's necessarily transferable from your undergraduate degree, you might want to look into things like your professional experiences. So it may be a case that you've been in employment for a period of time, and you can draw upon those experiences and challenges that you may have had in that situation and kind of bring that into your personal statement as well. It's also a really great point to tell us about the grades that you achieved at undergraduate level. Obviously, this kind of combined into your interest in the area, your passion for the subject, but also shows us, of your abilities and your achievements. And again, this ties into the passion for the subject. So really, that's something we'd love to see shining through, is a bit about you and how your passion grows for that subject. This relates a little bit to the last bullet point on there. So your motivations to study a master's and your passion, I think, are very similar things, in that, if you are really keen to study one particular subject at a master's level, it may be a case that you've done some additional reading or an additional project, or you've written a notable piece of work, a publication, to contribute to that field already. It's also really helpful, the bullet point second from bottom, to kind of give us an idea of academics at the university whose work interests you and who you might want as a dissertation supervisor. This doesn't always necessarily correlate when it comes down to your research project that you might undertake, especially as your interests might change over that time period. But it gives us a really good idea and a lot of evidence to show us that you've really researched the course at Leicester and that you've had a lot of information. You've sort of done a lot of reading and research around that. So you have an awareness of the work that we do at Leicester, and how that might relate to you. So I'll just move on to some top tips for writing a personal statement. The first one is I think it's a very important point to make, and it's to tailor your statement for each course and each university. So for example, if you wanted to study our MSc chemistry program, why that specific program, and perhaps why at Leicester as well. It may be a case that you look into some of the work that's recently been published by some of the chemistry groups at Leicester, and you can talk about how that sort of specific research area relates to something you've done previously. But you definitely want to make sure you're tailoring each statement for each course. I think this is really important because it shows, again, that you've done your research about the university and you kind of get that passion across. It's not always the best method to kind of copy and paste from one application to another directly. Sometimes it becomes quite obvious. So yeah, do talk about specific things to you and the university or the course that you're applying to. Definitely use using positive and enthusiastic language and professional tone of voice. This just, again, further adds that passion, that enthusiasm, and it really gives us a sense that you're super motivated to join Leicester and to join that course. And again, that professional tone of voice. Sometimes we do have some students who send in applications are a little bit too informal, but we do want to see that you have that kind of academic rigor that is required for a master's program, and just deliver that professionality. Also use compelling evidence to back up your skills. I think this is a really key thing. It's not necessarily about the quantity of skills that you have. It's more about your ability to back up the skills that you've got. So for example, it's really helpful if, for example, you've developed strong writing skills, and if you can back that up and say, well, I've written a publication recently, that backs that skill up really, really well. It's better to go into that and expand on things a bit more, find, what did you learn from that process of writing a publication, rather than just list off a range of different skills that you have without any evidence to back them up. So I would definitely recommend using kind of a STAR technique. If you're unsure what that is, we can pop some links in there from our careers pages. But yeah, a STAR technique where you kind of outline the situation and the task, your specific action, and then the result from that. It gives us a really nice package of that specific skill. Definitely keep it clear and concise. Use the word counter on Microsoft Word or whichever application you're using to make sure that you're not writing thousands and thousands of words and having to cut it all the way back. You do want to keep it clear and concise and avoid really long sentences. It's not a huge amount of words, 1,000 words in total for your personal statement. So yeah, just make sure that you are taking that time to really focus your personal statement on what you want to say very clearly. Again, a couple of really important points there at the bottom. Proofread and edit before submission, and check your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Sometimes I find that when you're writing a piece of work, and this is from personal experience, that when I've been proofreading something, it becomes a little bit difficult to notice any mistakes. So often it's quite handy or quite useful to pass that over to a friend or a colleague or a referee and ask them to have a look as well. This is just giving it another set of eyes. So if you're able to do that, I would thoroughly recommend it. But yeah, don't be afraid to edit, redraft certain sections if you don't think they're particularly strong, or again, using that evidence. And yeah, check your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. This also comes quite nicely from somebody else having a look at your statement as well. And definitely make it personal to you. We want to find out a bit about you and your personal statement. We don't really want carbon copies of the same statement for each individual. We really want to find out about your previous experiences, what you'll gain from a master's, and where you want to go. I think having those career aspirations in your personal statement is great. It shows us that you're really directional and very passionate and enthusiastic. So even if you're not 100% sure of your career future, your career routes in the future, still make it personal. Bring in other things that may, volunteering experiences, other part-time work that not necessarily is key in an academic sense, but gives us an idea about you as an individual. Okay, so the next slide I'm going to touch upon, that's kind of the section for personal statement, and I'm happy to answer a few more questions a little bit later on, and I'm sure Charlotte can also support with that too. So please pop questions in there if you have them about personal statements. So then the next step is to kind of contact your referees. So you will need 2 referees for your application, and those may be academic or professional. I personally would recommend that you have at least one academic, so whether that is perhaps your personal tutor or your dissertation supervisor, or somebody that may have guided you in an academic sense whilst you were either studying previously or since your undergraduate degree, and then also a professional one, so whether that be from employment, whether that be full-time or part-time. It's really just to give us again that picture of you from an academic sense and also in a professional character sense as well. If you are kind of struggling and you're not 100% sure about who to put down as references, I would definitely aim to go towards an academic route. And even if that's somebody that, even if your professional one is somebody who has supervised you whilst you've been volunteering perhaps, or has perhaps been a bit of a mentor to you, I think that suits the professional referee quite well. Do get in touch if you're kind of finding that difficult, or if you have any questions about referees. The admissions team, the admissions email that I popped on the screen a couple of slides ago, they will be best placed to kind of advise you on that if you need some help. But the referees will be contacted directly by the university. That's in most cases. Occasionally, you may have already been provided with a copy of your reference. That's absolutely fine as well. There will be chances for you to upload those documents in there. But yes, these individuals will be contacted by the university just to get a feel for who you are as a person and just support your application further. And this is probably the biggest point on my slide, is to speak to your referees in advance of the application and way ahead of the deadline. Even if you don't end up applying for an opportunity, I would still strongly recommend having good conversations with your referees in advance. Let them know that you're applying for new opportunities, whether that is specifically a master's at Leicester, whether that's other employment, whether that's masters at other universities. Just speak to them in advance. Don't leave it to the night before where you're kind of, oh, by the way, or just wanted to let you know it's really, really good to have that conversation beforehand, and definitely ahead of the deadline that you'll be submitting your application in. Okay, so I'm going to touch then a little bit upon funding, but I want to just make you aware that I'm not going to go into too much detail as we actually have our Funding for UK Students session next week. So I can provide a little bit more information in those sessions then. If there are questions, do keep them coming through though. More than happy to try and do our best to answer them. But this is kind of a part of the application process in many ways. So I did want to ensure that it was part of my talk. But there are a range of ways to fund your master's studies. Lots of students choose the postgraduate loan option offered by the Student Loans Company. And you can see kind of some of the facts and figures on here about that. And then also things like sponsorship via government agency or charity. There are also opportunities to obtain scholarships and discounts. See our website for details. I can pop the link in the chat for our scholarships page. There's a range of scholarships available for UK students and also international students. So have a look at which ones you'd be able to apply for. And then also the self-funded route as well. There's a bit of an eligibility criteria here for things like the postgraduate loan. So you can see those there below. But like I said, I will be touching on funding more broadly in our funding talk next week. So if you are interested in finding a bit more about the funding options available to you, please just sign on to our webinars, which leads me on to my next slide, which is what's next. So we have got some live talks throughout the next 2 weeks on various topics. So funding for UK students, it's also worth saying. We have funding sessions for international students as well coming up. We have a visa application session too, some information on careers, accommodation, and also PhD study if you're looking kind of for a step beyond your master's degree. So you can head to our website and book online for those. This QR code should take you there. Equally, so should this webpage. And I think Charlotte will be posting it in the chat as well. But please do sign up for these. These will be in a similar format, hopefully with the presentation on a full screen. But yeah, these will be online through the UniBuddy platform. So please sign up to them if you want to find more out about those topics. And then the and beyond. So I guess this is just in summary of all the things I've touched upon. It's very much do the research on the course that's right for you. Make sure that you're able to look into the module specifics, find out how you're going to be assessed, how long will your dissertation project be, how much research time will that include. Ask those questions to the academics that you're keen to work with as well. And that follows then on to the second point, reach out to the university and its academics. Everyone is there kind of wanting to support you with that application and make sure it is the right thing for you. So please just contact people. The third step there is for and beyond is to investigate funding opportunities and options. So again, that might be a case of attending our webinar next week, but also looking at a wealth of resources online. There are lots and lots of pieces of information on our website, but equally on central websites as well. So for example, the UK government website has lots of information on the postgraduate loan. And then the last step is to start your application. And I can't emphasize this anymore, but the sooner you get the process started, the better. This is really key. Courses do fill up, and there is a certain number of places that we're able to offer out for certain subjects. So it is a case of once you've made those decisions, once you've decided it's the right thing for you, it's really helpful to not delay and just kind of get going with that application process. It may be a case that then you want to start contacting your referees, figure out your funding stream. So some of these may happen simultaneously, but kind of get the ball rolling. What I would say is that sometimes it can be a bit daunting. In my life, I have been faced with opening a blank Word document before and not being able to kind of write anything as an initial starting point, especially for a personal statement. So what I would say is, even if you're kind of still unsure about the idea of a master's, just generally for whichever opportunities you might be applying for, it'd be really helpful just to open up a document and start writing down some of your qualifications, start putting down some of your skill sets and things that you might be interested in. And that way, when you come to them writing your personal statement, you're able to sort of open that document and you've got a few places to begin. You're kind of not faced with that blank document situation, and you can start to build on some of those experiences that you've already got. That's my ultimate top tip for for anything that you're writing is just start off slow. Even in bullet point format or note format is really helpful. So the sooner you get things like that started, the easier it will be then when it comes to applying for opportunities. And then kind of, I say before we go, we will do this a little bit later on, but I just wanted to highlight some further questions initially. So if you did want to get in touch with me, my details are on the screen at the moment. I will shut this presentation down for a moment so I can access some of the questions and we can have a bit of a Q&A session with Charlotte. I'll pop this back up, but yeah, if you did want to get in touch with me via Unibuddy or via email, you can do so from here. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen from now and head back to the Unibuddy site. And I think, Charlotte, you are there. Fabulous. Yep. So I'd just like to introduce Charlotte. Yes. Did you want to do a bit of a summary as to kind of your journey and your route through Leicester?
Sure. So, hi everyone, my name's Charlotte. I am similar to Alicia in that I've also studied at Leicester for a really long time. So I studied my undergraduate here as well. And I started studying for a BSc in medical genetics. And then I decided I kind of wanted to do a master's because I was interested in kind of continuing in research. And I did a master's in molecular genetics. After that, I then actually did a separate master's in medical statistics, and now I'm still at Leicester doing a PhD in genomic epidemiology. So basically, I'm just kind of studying every degree I can at Leicester. So I really love doing my master's degrees here at Leicester, but it was a really good program for me. It was a really good university, and I just had a really great time.
That's
kind
great.
Of briefly outline.
Yeah, no, that's really great, Charlotte. Thank you for that. I'm just having a quick look through actually some of the chat questions. Did you maybe want to talk a little bit about your kind of application process and how you kind of found getting that personal statement together? Any tips that you had for actually starting to write an application, or if you used anything similar that I've mentioned already?
Sure. So for me, I kind of decided to start by just finding out all of the information that I needed to include in my personal statement. So I spoke to some of the course conveners of the programs that I was interested in. So I found out from them what they were looking for in candidates. And I used this to kind of shape my personal statement. So if it's something you've not already done, it's something that I would recommend reaching out to the course conveners to find out more about actually what it is they're looking for in a candidate and to find out whether or not you have those skills or whether or not how you can gain those skills if you don't have them already, just to kind of make yourself as competitive a candidate as you can. As well as that, just kind of thinking about how you can apply skills that you've learnt maybe not only just in your undergraduate course, but also maybe in other things you've done kind of extracurricularly, or even things that you do recreationally for fun. Sports is something that, massively teamwork skills, etc. So just kind of thinking about, you mentioned the STARS technique already, and how you can draw on that STARS technique to kind of highlight some of those skills you have, and just being aware of kind of the range of places that those skills can come from, as well as that being prepared. So I feel like I left my first master's application quite late. I left it until about Easter of my third year, so that might not sound quite late, but for me, I had a really busy summer, and I also had a really busy time over Easter trying to prepare for my final exams and get my dissertation in, and overall I felt like if I'd gotten things sorted out a bit sooner, I would have been a bit less stressed about it. So just kind of thinking about your personal timelines and when would suit you best. In fact, one of the questions actually in the chat has been about kind of deadlines for applying for masters, and I've, as I briefly mentioned, there isn't one. It's mostly just when courses reach their full capacity.
Yeah, it's worth saying that there are a couple of courses, actually. We do have a couple with a few deadlines on. So actually, what I would really recommend is sort of head to the main page for that course, scroll down, there'll be a big grey box at the bottom with key application deadlines. The vast majority of them are up until sort of September time. But I would say that we've got a couple of courses that might be a little bit sooner. So worth always just double checking. It's on that main page for the course that you're interested in. But yes, what I would say is get that application in sooner rather than later. It's generally recommended that you do get it in.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know and correcting me on that. So I think those are kind of some of the main takeaways that I had, kind of learning about things. The actual application process I found quite easy to do just because it was a fairly intuitive kind of system. So it was just kind of obviously filling in your personal details, filling out kind of information about your academic history. I know obviously you've just gone through it. And that I thought was made things quite easy and quite straightforward when I was actually applying, which was quite nice because I felt stressed enough about the writing of the personal statement. One thing I would recommend is kind of having someone else read your personal statement, a fresh pair of eyes, someone else to just kind of check you've not made a stupid typo somewhere or you've not accidentally said that you're interested in a course at another university. Just to make sure you've not copied and pasted your personal statement across to multiple courses, just because that's probably not the best first impression you want to make to a university if you are looking to attend and start on one of their courses. That's kind of my top tips for kind of applying to masters.
That's great. I really like that, and definitely getting other people to take a look at your application as well. That's a really big one. Just another pair of eyes over it, especially if you've been reading it quite a lot. That can often, it's very easy to miss things. So definitely a really good tip there. I was just going to start running through a couple of the questions. I've pinned a few. I think you kind of mentioned it actually, Charlotte, in the chat, but maybe it would be good to kind of talk through it verbally about how did you find the jump from undergraduate level to master's level from Olivia? That's honestly such a great question. I think maybe, Charlotte, if you want to talk about it first, I can definitely give a bit of an answer as well, like having done that transition and talk about it from sort of my side of things. So if you wanted to take that one first.
Sure. So as I kind of briefly alluded to in the chat, I found that the actual content wasn't necessarily entirely dissimilar, at least for my master's in molecular genetics. And obviously it helped because my undergraduate was in the same field, so content-wise, it was quite similar. What was perhaps more of a jump was the kind of level of independence that I was suddenly having, so the amount of kind of independence I had with regards to being like managing my own coursework, things like that, managing my own time, managing my own research. Unlike an undergraduate, if we had an upcoming deadline, my lecturers were never going to mention it in a lecture. You were just expected to know that obviously the deadline was upcoming and, have organised yourself accordingly such that you could submit the coursework on time. And I was perhaps obviously used to undergraduate, maybe you get more prompting from your lecturers to remind you, next week there's a deadline. So it was just kind of some of the little things like that made me aware that I was kind of growing as an independent researcher. And that really helped to prepare me for my PhD. So those were kind of some of the main things that I noticed. But then in comparison, when I did my second master's in medical statistics was very different from what I had learned previously. So there I would say there was a much bigger jump just because it was an entirely new field. So I'd say, I know you mentioned earlier that obviously a master's is a really great opportunity to kind of transition between fields, and I definitely felt the value in that. I will say though, just to be more aware that obviously the jump is going to be more because you're branching out into obviously a new field to you. And there'll be other people there on that master's who've kind of maybe come from that field originally at undergraduate level, and they will understand things that obviously you won't, but just not to feel like you can't ask questions, even if everyone else in the room seems to know what's going on, which happened to me quite a few times.
Definitely, yeah. No, it's I don't know. There's something about just it's really good to hear about different people's experiences. I think for me, actually, I kind of was on an integrated master's course, and then I moved through to my PhD. But it was actually that master's year for me that really made me realise how passionate I was about doing a PhD. And it was just the subject content was so interesting to me in that master's year that's the kind of driver. That wasn't originally in my career plan to go away and do a PhD after my master's, but actually spending time in the lab, having that in-depth research. So it was, for me, the difference between undergraduate and master's was really quite a change in my own sort of interests and pursuits, actually. So it was a really positive thing, I think, from how that looks practically. That undergraduate level, you do have a level of independence and independent study, But I think from, moving then into that master's sphere, it really allowed me to take control of my learning, and it really allowed me to explore new areas and effectively become a mini expert in something, which is pretty cool. Like, I feel like that's sometimes not things that, people always often think about. It seems almost obvious. But yeah, to kind of become a specialist in a certain area, or to really have such in-depth knowledge in that topic, it was really empowering. I think that was really, really beneficial. And again, like I said, springboarded me onto wanting to go on to study a PhD, which, was a really good step forward for my knowledge pursuit. So no, really, really good question. It's things that we do get asked that, because it's hard to imagine what that's like. And so, yeah, when you reach out to those academics, they'll be able to give you that detail. Again, look into the course structure, what you'll be studying, how you'll be studying. So, yeah, thank you for that question, Olivia. I was just going to run through and see if we had a couple more. I have popped a link in about the deposit. This will also likely be touched upon in our webinar relating to funding, which will be taking place next week. So keep an eye out for that. I think we'll talk about a few of those things then, so I don't want to touch too much on that. Victoria mentioned about the personal statement process. So hopefully I've covered that, Victoria. If not, please pop some questions in if you have other things that you'd like to talk about. And in terms of slides after the webinar, this should be being recorded, so we can get this kind of posted online so you're able to review it afterwards, and the slides will be on there. I appreciate that they weren't perfectly on the screen, but hopefully you're still able to see them. And I pretty much read everything off the screen, so you can hear the content back again. And Sam spoke about accommodation, which is really great. So thank you for your question, Sam. We actually have our accommodation session, so our accommodation version of this, being run tomorrow by Martin, who is in our lovely accommodation team. So you are able to get accommodation as a postgraduate student. It's actually through the same application process now as for any of our students that are joining us at Leicester. And I think, did Sam follow up, am I right, Charlotte, with another question about accommodation?
He posted about whether or not, what was the likelihood of getting accommodation.
The likelihood,
followed it up with the guarantee that we offer for our students.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, you are guaranteed some university managed accommodation if you apply by the 1st of September in the year that you're starting that course, which is a really great guarantee that we've got. But what I would say is, again, if you are considering making an application for a master's, once you have kind of secured us and made that application process, you are able to put a form in for your accommodation to say what type of accommodation would suit you. But I would definitely tune in, if you can, Sam, tomorrow to our session with Martin, or actually at least pop back to our page and you'll be able to find the content on there after that session. So Martin is he kind of runs our accommodation systems, and we'll be delivering information on that tomorrow. So yes, if any of you are interested in finding out more about what type of accommodation we have a big range at Leicester, then please tune in tomorrow. And just having a quick look through a few others. So I think a few people are asking about deposit and the visa process, which is super important questions. We do have our other sessions again, so I'm going to highlight to those. We have specialists from the international office and from the visa office who will be running those. So please head back onto the main UniBuddy page. Within the University of Leicester site, you'll be able to see our other sessions that are taking place. So please do apply for those. Again, you can get in touch with us. There is an Inquire Now form on our page, so you can get in touch with us and pop us a question. You can also get in touch with the international recruitment team and international admissions team as well. So I definitely recommend that if you can't join into our session. I'm just going to have a look, see if there's any more. In what time does the university confirm on the offer letter? So generally speaking, we have a fairly fast turnaround time for our postgraduates, and this is compared to undergraduates. So ideally, you won't be waiting sort of a matter of months. It should be ideally within a few weeks. That does depend, though, on our admissions team really and their availability. We had a little bit of a busy period during kind of January, February, as they were also processing undergraduate applications, but hopefully you should be hearing back from them in a couple of weeks, really. If you are wanting to get some updates on your application, please get in touch with the admissions team again. They also have a phone number which is available on our page. Charlotte, you might be able to find it on our website and post it in here. But yeah, feel free to kind of give them a call and see. They do try and get back to people as soon as possible. They don't really want to keep you waiting. Ellie has also asked, are there any more open days? There are currently no in-person open days planned, but what I will guide you to, and again, Charlotte, hopefully you can support with the link for Ellie, about you can more than welcome to come to the University of Leicester and get a campus tour given by one of our ambassadors. So you can book onto those. So we don't have any more PG-specific open days coming up, but it might be nice if you are passing by or near Leicester that you can book on for a campus tour, give you a chance to see the library, facilities, the Students' Union, all the kind of spaces that you would want to touch upon, including postgraduate specific areas as well. We can definitely help with that request too. So yeah, please do get in touch with us. Please fill in a request form for that if you would like to come and visit. We are hoping to have some subject content that's available soon for our postgraduate courses and how they relate to our key research themes. So again, please keep checking back at our postgraduates page. I'm going to post a link for that on here now. But yeah, please just check back on our postgraduate page and you're able to sign up for some updates if you wanted to find out when those are released.
Ellie's also asked about whether or not you can apply for more than one course.
Yes, yeah, I believe you can. I don't know if you've had any experience with this, Charlotte, but I believe you can apply to more than one course.
Yeah, I believe that is the case, but I would also recommend that it's maybe something that you want to speak with admissions about, just to check if there's any reason why two specific courses can't be selected.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I believe you can.
Absolutely.
It's probably worth just speaking with admissions.
Yes, definitely. And I think if you are thinking about applying for one course, that email out to a member of staff or an academic in that department would be really beneficial for you, Ellie. I think that would give you a lot of insight and a lot of kind of depth to the course that you're kind of thinking about. I guess if there's a couple on the fence that you're on the fence about, that would be really helpful for you, I think, just to get that specific content and figure out what really is going to be working for you. Oh, yeah, so I touched upon the departmental webinars. Thank you for your question, Charity. So yes, there will be some subject content. I have posted our postgraduate page in the chat now. When you head to the bottom of that screen, you can see a sign up for postgraduate updates. And I would really recommend, if you're looking for additional content about our subjects and these webinars as well, once they've been recorded, sign up for some updates. That will give you all of our sort of details about when things are coming out. Is there support for the more mature student returning to study? Thank you for your question, Orla, as well. So yes, there definitely is. There's definitely more. There's definitely support in terms of academic support. So we do have our accessibility centre that can kind of help with some of that. We also have our study skills unit as well. So they can kind of help you if you've maybe been out of kind of university study for some time. So they can support you with that and getting back into study, especially for some people, it might be a bit difficult or different moving into more of a digital age than when they previously studied. So we do have resources available to that and IT courses that can help you with your, accessing content, referencing, for example. I don't know, Charlotte, have you ever accessed any of our study skills unit?
I have on a couple of occasions, just for kind of some support. Yeah. Particularly, I think, actually, when I was an undergraduate, there was some maths things that I was struggling with applying to some of my coursework. So I think I had a meeting with them about how to apply some of the maths.
Absolutely, definitely. So some of those things might be really useful kind of for everybody, generally to access the support, but equally for people who may have been out of study for a little bit of time. So definitely all of there are. There are also, it's worth kind of saying there are places on campus that are postgraduate taught specific. So people who are studying for a master's, you have space within the library that is only available for master's students. And there are also kind of facilities, study other sort of social study spaces. So perhaps if you wanted to work in a group, there are places that you can also study on campus for you as well, that, are not necessarily undergraduate focused. So there's definitely a range of different things. And what I would say is actually if you are able to come to Leicester and visit for a campus tour, we can kind of tailor it and show you those sorts of facilities as well.
I have posted a link in the chat as well to our webpage about mature student support. So that is
Fantastic. That's
quite broadly
great.
across both undergraduate and postgraduate students, but there is quite a lot of support for you regardless of what stage of kind of academia you're planning to re-enter at.
That's great. Thank you for that, Charlotte. Divya's popped a question on there. What is the next step after accepting the offer and pay the first amount to secure the place? Charlotte, do you have experience of this?
I can't actually remember.
No, that's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah, I remember getting my email through to say that I was getting an offer,
Yeah.
and how excited I was, and how I ran. I think I was at a barbecue, and I think I just ran around for a while and was like, I'm doing a master's. But in terms of actually what the university wanted me to do as my next steps, I can't remember.
That's okay. I've just had a look. I found our site for it. So actually, yeah, when to pay. I'm guessing, Divya, you're probably asking about tuition fees. Do you think that's the case, Charlotte? Just double check the question. After accepting the offer,
I think everyone's
yeah, I'll pop the link on there. But it's got details effectively about the deposit if you live outside of the UK or Ireland. And then it's also got information there for when to pay your tuition fees. So it kind of breaks it down as to when you should pay those installments. It's got it for campus-based students and distance learning students as well, so depending on what course you're looking at. It's also got details on there for, going back to Sam's question earlier, about accommodation fees, about when to pay those as well. So hopefully, Divya, I know that's not a perfect answer for you, but if you do take a look at this information on this site, that should break it down, because I'm not sure if you're talking about the deposit or if you're talking about your actual fees. So take a look on there and hopefully we can help you with that. Olivia's popped, at least you say your master's was integrated with your PhD. Did you do an MPhil? So no, actually my master's was integrated with my undergraduate course, which is a little bit unusual. Some universities offer it. The University of Leicester do it in quite a few different science subjects. So yeah, I did an integrated MChem course, and then I went on to do my PhD. But I think, Charlotte, am I right in thinking that your master's and your PhD are integrated, right?
Yeah. So my master's in medical statistics is actually considered part of my PhD program. So it's a 1+4 program. So effectively my PhD is 5 years, which I know is quite different. Actually, not a lot of programs offer something like that. And actually, I was really lucky because it was a PhD that I really wanted to do, but because my background was quite strongly in kind of pure genetics, I didn't necessarily have kind of the statistical background that the program was kind of looking for. So instead, they offered this program, this alternative kind of option to do the masters first, and that was actually funded as part of my PhD. And that gave me kind of the ability to then progress onto the PhD in the basis that I, had learned a lot of techniques and methods during that year that I could then take forward into my PhD.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really great. And then I was just picking up, I think you've replied to Jack already about documents for the university so yeah, if you haven't finished your undergraduate degree, what documents do the university want to see to prove the validity of your predicted grade? So I think, yeah, definitely get in touch with admissions for that one, Jack. I would say that in terms of proof of your validity, often you can go, if you're not at the University of Leicester, this should apply to other universities as well. You should be able to actually get kind of a transcript of your current examinations and results from your current university that you're at whilst you're in the stages of that degree. I think you can normally ask your university to, I don't know whether they have an email copy or whether they will send you a paper version, but you are able to actually obtain one of those. Often this is also supported by your academic references as well. So like I said, keeping it kind of close with your personal tutor or your dissertation supervisor, somebody that has good evidence for your academic qualifications to date. But yeah, do get in touch with admissions if you're unsure about that in the process. But I think, yeah, often you can get a transcript from your university.
Just to kind of follow up what you said, Jack, you can access your transcript via My Student Record. However, it would normally be preferred that you had it printed out on university letterhead paper and then have to scan it and upload it that way, just as kind of proof, like further proof. Just so you do know. So yeah, you can access your your transcript through My Student Record, but it might be that you have to go to Student Services to have it printed on university paper.
Yeah, yeah.
That's one thing I do remember from mine.
Yes, yeah. I guess obviously that's also lesser specific, so it may be different at slightly different universities. So yeah, do get in touch with your current institution, Jack, and kind of let them know that you will require some documents from them. Let's have a look. So it looks like, Kamali, you have done your undergraduate in commerce full time and an MBA in financial management, distance learning, and now you're working in IT as an analyst. Gosh, you have a lot of skills going on there. That's fantastic. Now I'd like to enroll for a related master's. Are you eligible to do so? Yes, what I would say with that is look into your kind of funding options. If I don't know whether you've perhaps taken out postgraduate loan previously, but you kind of then need to look into how you're going to fund yourself if you're no longer eligible for that. But in terms of actually applying for a master's, yes, Charlotte, you've done two. Am I right in thinking? And they're both done. So yeah, you're absolutely able to enroll for a related master's. So you would, in theory, be eligible. Check the entry requirements for the course that you're wanting to do. But yes, I would definitely, if you're keen to study more and you're wanting to kind of expand into a new topic, a master's is a really good way to do that. But you would really just need to look into your entry requirements, and your funding options are your big ones. So hopefully that helps you out.
I'm just going to add that sometimes if you're worried that maybe you don't perfectly match the eligibility criteria, depending on what those criteria are, it might be worth reaching out to the admissions for that course, because depending on what criteria is you don't meet, there might be some kind of room for flexibility in terms of, like I said, if you're transitioning between fields, if you can prove evidence of your commitment to a specific field, even if maybe you don't have work experience in something or something along those lines, they might be willing to still kind of accept you onto the masters. It's kind of about proving your interest and your dedication to a topic. So just to kind of let you know, if you're concerned because you don't know if the field is kind of necessarily related to what you previously studied, then that doesn't necessarily have to rule you out. Work experience and jobs, actually time working, can actually count as well towards your experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I just spotted a question from earlier. Actually, I will finish, I think, on this one. It's from Himanshu. So thank you for your question. Sorry, it was a little while ago. And you've had your offer letter for the MSc International Business, which is great. Well done. Congratulations for that. And you have 2 professional letters of recommendation from 2 of your latest employers dated back to December 22. Isn't necessary to provide an academic letter of recommendation apart from the 2 I've mentioned. So I think that would be okay. What I would say is get in touch with our admissions team just to double check. But if you've had your offer letter through, I'm guessing you've been through the admissions process and you've sent off your application and had it back. That's absolutely fine. I would just, again, double check it with admissions team. But it sounds like you're on the right track, and yeah, obviously good luck with your course and your offers, and it sounds very exciting for you. So yeah, just double check it with admissions if you do feel like you need to provide additional references. But it sounds like if you've already received your offer letter, you've kind of filled that criteria already. Super. So I feel like unfortunately there are a few course-specific questions, and I'm not able to kind of support with those, but like I mentioned earlier on in my session, please just sign up for some updates on our website. If you're looking for some course-specific content, reach out to academics in the meantime, but equally keep an eye out, as we are hoping to run some research inspired sessions kind of coming up in the next couple of months. So please do check in on those as well. So yeah, thank you very much for that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hopefully briefly share my screen. And for those of you who filled in our Menti poll earlier on, this is just to review and check how you've been getting on. Let me pull up the slides, and it's just a last minute sort of quick Menti poll just to see how you're feeling now, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit better and a bit more confident in your application process. But yeah, if you just scan that QR code again, head to menti.com and type in the code, which is 777-49147. Brilliant. So yeah, if you could just fill that in for us and let us know how you're feeling now. And if you do have any kind of feedback, feel free to pop it in the chat as you're kind of heading out of the session. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, Charlotte, for all of your support and all of the questions that you answered. Thank you also, everyone, for bearing with us with the slight sort of technical difficulties at the start. Really appreciate you joining today. And please do check out our other sessions coming up over the next couple of weeks. We'll be excited to see you in some other sessions soon.